And now for something a little bit different. I'm always looking for a good game that I can wind down with at the end of the night. For the longest time, I played Everyday Genius Square Logic until I 100%ed it. I'm not proud of this fact, I just need you to understand the importance of this ritual. Giving my brain a little workout does a great job of distracting me from the bad thoughts, and tires me out to be able to go to sleep quickly. I've put over 80 hours into Jigsaw Puzzle Dreams, which is just jigsaw puzzling. Really good jigsaw puzzling, mind you, and it's free, so go get at it if you haven't heard of it before. But I found that jigsaw puzzles are not quite mentally taxing enough to keep my mind busy. But today's game, Mega Mosaic, definitely is. Thanks to the developer for providing a key, but this opinion's coming straight from me. I also hope that the dev doesn't consider that an insult, by the way. This game is a sleep aid! I mean it in a positive way, I promise. It's a Philippix puzzle, which is essentially a variant on Minesweeper, and a titanic one at that. You may have played the original Windows Minesweeper, whose expert grid goes as large as 24 by 30. Now, how does a 250 by 250 puzzle sound? Certainly it's daunting when you first boot it up and scroll around the board, but the designers helpfully segmented the board into a couple dozen regions with their own completion percentage trackers, so it's not overwhelming and you can focus on single regions at a time if you prefer. The rules are simple enough. The numbers on the grid tell you which squares in a one-tile radius around it are white, and every other tile is meant to be blue. Each region's border is a pre-solved line of tiles to help you get started, and so you go around this absolutely massive board, slowly using logic and deduction to fill it out. And as you fill in each region of the board, it will change into differently themed pictures, sort of like you're putting together a quilt. The design of the board is handcrafted, which is pretty impressive in its own right, because it requires no guesswork, and that had to have been a monumental task to design. You'll sometimes have to leave a region and go somewhere else to solve other areas until you've managed to lead one blob of solved tiles towards the other, but that's part of the fun and thinkiness. And unlike traditional Minesweeper, you aren't penalized for making a mistake. There are no game overs here, but if you do make a mistake, it could take several minutes before you realize that you've screwed up somewhere and need to redo a ton of squares. On that note, it's definitely not perfect. I'd like to be able to clear errors more frequently instead of only when a region is completed. Now, that feature could obviously be abused by an amateur player, but there needs to be a middle ground between how it currently works and just allowing free usage of it. Also, there aren't quite enough lo-fi tunes in the soundtrack for a game that will likely take over 20 hours to finish. For me, it was 30. So even though the songs are soothing, they can get really repetitive. The devs mentioned bringing your own music and podcasts on the store page, which makes sense on a desktop or laptop, but if you're on a Steam Deck, that's a bit trickier. You may want to have your phone close by to provide alternate audio if you get tired of the built-in tunes. It's only $7.99 though, and for that price point, it's an absolutely massive puzzle, so I'm glad that it exists for people like me. This developer also made the similarly affordable Logic Town, a collection of Einstein-style logic puzzles that creates little diorama scenes after each completion, and I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually offered both in a bundle, so you'd have one game for your afternoon lunch break and the other to tuck you into bed. I've played the demo of Logic Town and can vouch for its quality, but if I had to pick one or the other, it'll come down to whether you can stick through the relative monotony of constantly clicking on a blue grid for 30 hours. Logic Town has several different dioramas to build, so it does offer a bit more visual variety. Of course, each region of the board has its own picture to reveal, but it may take hours to do that, so be prepared for a long haul on this one. If games like this interest you, there's a whole genre of games like this on Steam, from Hex Cells to Tametsi to hybrid genre games like Demon Crawl and Dreamsweeper, and maybe I'll do a video covering Logic games more thoroughly in the future. But for now, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and check out my Patreon for other content. I have more reviews of indie and retro games coming, so stay tuned. Until then, I'll see you in another world.